Today we're going to be doing Boston's demo. We're very excited to send him to you. He's just a wonderful dog. He's done great with his training, has a very sweet personality. I'm sure you're excited, and I think you're going to really enjoy him. So during this demonstration we are going to cover 5 phases of his training. The first we'll go over is his manners, then we'll do obedience commands, then house training, crate training, and leash training. During this whole demonstration you will hear me use the word OK quite a bit. That is our marker that marks the correct behavior and releases from a stay. As well, you may hear me use our correction term, which is no. I treat that somewhat like a misdemeanor felony type of deal. Regardless, if he does something wrong, he's going to get corrected. Now, the correction, or I should say the severity of the correction, depends on his behavior. If he does something simple like he breaks a stay, I'll tell him no and I'll have him do it again. Whereas if he did something worse, like he tried to jump on me or steal food, then I'm going to be a lot more firm in the way that I correct him. And I do that by adjusting my voice fluctuation and my body language. Those 2 factors are what a dog reads the most. Now we do have one type of physical correction, which is a leash correction, and all it is 2 pops on the leash. I'm not trying to yank him backwards. Basically, I'm just trying to get his attention so that he will focus on me, and then I can deliver a command or a correction, whether that's no, or we do have easy if he starts to pull, and off if he starts to jump. So, hopefully you've looked over the manual and the training material, so all of this should be pretty repetitive. The key with all of it is just consistency. Be consistent in rewarding and correcting. The other thing is he loves his crate. I mean, loves it. And so if you leave it open in an area where he can get to it, you'll see him run in and out of it all day long. He'll take something and go and lay down and chew on it in there, and that's just his favorite place to be. So just let you know that. So now we'll let him out. We'll start into our manners. The first manner that we will cover is his gates and his doorways. And so when I let him out of the crate, when we go outside, he is expected to wait. He should stay without me saying anything. It should be an automatic behavior. And so if he does break, I might simply close the door, tell him no, lift up my leg. But for the most part, it should be automatic. Okay, good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Now I will show you the house door when we go outside. But just expect that behavior. Don't let him just bust through your legs. Now the next manner would actually be what he just did there. Anytime I call him to me, come here, I expect him to sit. That's his greeting. And what that does is, one, it gets his eye contact, and so he's focused on me. The other thing is it keeps him from jumping. Gives him something to do. Good boy. Good boy. And so that's also one of the first signs of respect. If he will offer that to me, I know that he respects me as a leader. And that's the relationship that you're going to want to establish with him. And so anytime, Boston, come here. Before I give him attention, I expect that sit. Good boy. Now, I will show you his meal time. Anytime we feed him, I expect him to hold a sit stay. And he will swallow his food very quickly. But where he is already sitting, I will just tell him to stay. Okay, good boy. Now I do spend time handling him while he eats. I can stick my hands down in his food bowl, and I expect him not to growl or get after me at all. Like I said, he does swallow it very quickly. But I don't want him to be aggressive towards me, especially over food or over his objects. So we spend a lot of time handling him, especially during his meal, but also just other times during the day, making sure that we brush him. I can pick up his paws, I can handle his ears, his tail. I just don't want him to be aggressive, which I don't think Boston has an aggressive bone in his body, so he's very sweet. Good boy. Now, just along the lines of aggression, we make sure that if anything alarming did come up while we're training him, that we would take care of it. Like I said, he's very sweet. I haven't seen anything But there is one rule that I just like to make with all of my dogs, and that's regarding children. If little kids are playing with my dog, they have to have a toy. What that does is if the dog gets really intrigued by him, he wants to run after him, which kids are like the greatest thing to a dog, it gives him something to go after. He can go after the toy, or if they got nervous, you could throw the toy, direct him away. So, which he isn't the most toy-driven dog. He likes to run over and chase it, and then he'll sniff it and come back. He's not one to play fetch as much yet. But he does love to chase. Oh, buddy. Good boy. Let's see. So, the next manner that we'll talk about is jumping, and so that's one that we work on a lot because that's one of my biggest pet peeves. I hate when a dog jumps on me, and especially when you have a big dog like Boston here, I don't want him ever to jump on me. And so we've taught him the command off if he does try and jump. We've also taught him the greeting as a replacement behavior. Now, with that behavior, if he does come running and you think he's going to jump on you, there's a couple important things to remember. First, that if he's running at you, don't step backwards. As soon as you start going backwards, it turns into a game. He's going to want to chase you. He's going to want to come at you harder. Instead, if he's coming at me and I step into him, I'm restricting the space. I'm standing my ground, and a lot of times it'll throw off timing, as well as he's just not going to jump. And if he were to jump, it's going to put him more straight up and down, and I will bring my knee into him. Just knock him back. I'm not trying to hurt him by any means or to knock him over. I just need him to understand that he's not allowed to jump on me, and I will accompany that with the command off. And that also goes for if he tried to jump on your couch or just anything in your house. The next behavior would be chewing. We've spent a lot of time on chewing. I want to make sure that he's going to chew on appropriate things. And so the first couple weeks is when you're going to have to really work on that because he doesn't know what's his and what's yours yet. And so replacing as well as avoiding are your two biggest things you can do. You don't want him to chew on something. You want to avoid it. Don't avoid leaving things out and giving him free access to them. That's always the best way to prevent a chewing disaster. It's never possible in your house. There's always something he can chew on. And so if I saw him go and start chewing on a table leg, I would give him something hard. Something like this bully stick, something that he can get into. If he wanted to chew on his soft bed or a pillow, I'd give him something like a plush toy. If he wants to chew on shoelaces, give him a rope or something that reminds him of shoelaces. You just want to replace based on texture because they're going to chew on what they feel like they need. So when I do replace, if he's chewing on it, I'll tell him no, and then I'll give it to him. So now, the next two manners. Come here. Come on. The first is just teaching him to be very gentle with his mouth. And so we've taught him gently. If he was real excited, I just tell him gently. And I expect him to be very cautious with his mouth, which he does very, very well at. Also, that helps with working on jumping. If he were to rear up, I'd quickly pull it away. And I'm always going to give it to him in the palm of my hand. That way I can control the treat. And if he were to get a little bit excited with his teeth, I could pull it away and tell him gently. The last one, manner, is drop it. And so he has never had an issue with dropping. He will let go until he tries to run away. Drop it. Good boy. See, I can just tell him drop it, and he will let me have it. Which I'm going to let him chew on that for a minute just because I feel like I'm teasing him. But if he ever had something that he just wouldn't let go, what you want to do is just take it and hold it real still. That's the first step. And if he still won't let it go, you're not going to pull it out of his mouth, but instead I'll slip my thumb right behind his canines and push down on his tongue. And that's just going to cause him to open up as wide as he can. Come here. Come here, bud. Come here. I'll show you that real quick. You can just slip that right in and see he'll open up. You're not hurting him. It's just like the doctor putting the popsicle stick on your tongue. Just kind of annoying, and so he's going to open and try and get it out. So, but that does conclude our manners, and so we will move forward. So now we're going to move into our obedience commands. I'll show you the first two commands that we've taught him, and then we'll move into the hand signals and some of the place commands. So the first one is just to get his eye contact. That's all I want. And so if he's looking away, you just need to break his attention from something. That command is watch me. and are just looking for eye contact. Dogs do have basically a single track mind. Whatever they're looking at, that is what they're going to be focused on. And so if you can get that eye contact, you know he's focused on you. Get him to look away at all. Yeah. And I can even drag the treat right out here. Watch me. Okay, good boy. I'm just looking for that eye contact. Very simple command, but a very useful command. You just need him to stop and look up at you real quick. Watch me. Okay, good boy. And it's just real quick. As soon as you see that eye contact, I'll mark it. We use his name similarly, as well as we use it with the come command, which is our next one. I will always use with his name to get his attention, and then with the command. Boston, come! Okay, good boy, good boy. Now, the come command is definitely your most important command, but it's also the one that people burn really quickly. And that's because of overuse. If he's in the house, he's 3 feet away, just like that. You don't need to call him to come. Don't burn the command. As well as calling it when you know he's going to fail. If he's clear out there and he maybe can hear you and you're yelling at him, and then you're getting upset, and then he comes back and then you punish him, you're just going to burn that command. So instead, what I like to do is I like to spend a lot of time working on it. First thing I'll do is I'll take a very long lead, like a 20-30 foot lead, and I'll hook it on him and go into a field or in the backyard and just let him explore and play, and then randomly I'll call him to come, and then if he doesn't, I can reel him in. I always have control. He always has to follow through. If you are in a fenced-in yard, you can even let him off leash and work on it. As well as I'm going to keep a strict 10-to-1 ratio. I'm going to call him 10 times to me just to give him a treat, make it very positive, to let him go again. For that one time, I call him to come, and maybe we're going inside, or he has to go in the crate, something that could be negative. That way, just a lot more positive outweighs that negative. Boston, come! Good boy. If he doesn't want to come to you and he thinks it's fun to run around in circles around you if he doesn't respond, instead I'd much rather go backwards and call him to come and get real excited, and so that he's going to chase you. Just a little tip there. So the next 4 commands have 3 hand signals. And so the first is a sit. The sit hand signal is just a little scoop over the nose. Down is I'll take my hand flat and I'll take him down. And then stay is a stop sign. And we have both a sit and a down stay. And so I'll show you those real quick. Come here. So sit, down, stay. Now when I'm doing a command like that, the treat does come at the end when he's done it correctly. And he does have great stays, but never be satisfied with them. Always try and build them up. Add new distractions, make it a little bit longer, increase your distance, things like that. Okay, good boy, good boy. Now his sit stay, I can just ask him to sit, stay. Same thing as with his food. Oh, good boy. Yeah, good boy. Okay, good boy, good boy. Now, the next 2 commands don't necessarily have hand signals, but I always put myself in a position where he can read my body language. And both of those are a type of place command. The first one is to get him to go into his crate. And so I'll just step and I'll tell him, Boston, crate. And I will give him the treat when he goes in, because some of the time you will be closing that door. And so the release is a reward. Okay, good boy. The next one is to get him to go to bed. And so I'll just tell him, go to bed. I don't care what position he's in, as long as all 4 paws are on the bed, as well as he is expected to stay until released when placed on his bed. Okay, good boy, good boy, good boy. Now the last command is definitely one that you'll use more on a walk, and it's hard to show in here, but it's our leave it command. And so I can just tell him, I'm going to put a treat down on his bed, and I'll tell him to leave it. No, leave it. Okay, good boy. And so when you're on a walk and there's something off the side of the road, you can tell him to leave it and expect him to pick his head back up and walk past it and not be so drawn to it, wanting to get to it. So, but that does conclude our basic obedience portion. And now we'll talk about crate training real quick and move into his house training. And so the crate is, especially introducing a new dog into your home, is your biggest asset. You can put him away and not have fears that he's going to be tearing something up. And so we love the crate. They love the crate because it's like a den and it's their area. We oftentimes ask dogs to respect our space, and so I like to respect theirs. And so I do make a rule that if I have the crate in an area where he can get to it, and he goes in on his own and lays down, he's off limits until he comes out, because that's like his bedroom. So he does sleep through the night, 8 hours easily. We put him to bed at 10 and get him out about 6:30 or 7. And no need for breaks. He'll also go for 4 or 5 hours at least during the day. So if you need to run an errand, you can put him in the crate and go, and you shouldn't have any worries about him. Now, the transition period, which is the 2 to 4 weeks when you first get him, sometimes that causes, well, most times it causes a lot of stress on the dog. And so he's going to get a little bit of diarrhea, he'll have to pee a little bit more. And so if in the middle of the night he does start to whine in the crate, I would get him out and take him to the bathroom. Now, when I do that, I hook the leash on, we go straight to the bathroom, right back in the crate. That way he's not getting the idea that he can whine just to get let out and play. So, oh, good boy. Sit. Good. So with that, we will move into his house training. The one thing that we have done is we've taught him to ring a bell when he needs to go to the bathroom, as well that he's not allowed to pee in the house or in the crate, but that he's supposed to go to a certain area. And so we have a specific potty spot, and the way that you obtain that at your house is by taking him by the leash to that same area for the first couple months, and then he'll get used to going in that specific spot. It'll have his smell, and he'll go search it out. Now, he has wonderful bladder control. Like I said, he's a little bit older. A lot of times he will probably outlast you in the house, and so he might just end up waiting for you to let him out to use the bathroom. If he does need to go, though, we have taught him the bells, and what you're going to want to do is when you get him home, hang the bells on your door, and then I just like to stand here and stare at him, and he's going to, okay, and once he rings it the first time, just mark it, and then we'll use our potty word, or outside is what we use. And so the next time he rings it, I'll tell him, okay, outside, and then we'll go out. But I'll just, come here, get him to come over here. Come here. And I'm just going to have him ring it again. Okay, outside. Good boy. Let's go. Then I'm going to have him wait at the doorway. Okay. Okay. Now when you're doing that, it's alright that it takes a minute for him to ring the bell, because that means that he's processing it. He's really thinking about it, and so he knows what he's doing. And just like that, he rang it the first time and he sat there just looking at me like, are you going to let me out? Which is a great thing. So, but for the first month, as you introduce this dog into your home, it needs to be 100% supervision. You have to monitor him. You can't just let him have free access, or else you may find a pee spot or a pile in the house, which we don't want. It's so easy for them in a new place to get lost or confused and just end up going where they are. And so 100% supervision is essential. Also, if you can't give him that, use the crate. The crate is your asset. Put him in there if you can't watch him. And he loves it. He'll go to sleep, take a nice little nap, and life's good. A couple things to look for. If he starts sniffing real heavily, maybe panting, and he had water not too long ago, or he starts spinning in circles, those are all signs that he has to go, and so I'd get him out relatively quick. And so we take him on 2 types of walks. The first is an off-leash or a long lead walk. Until I know that he is going to come back to me, every time I call him to come, he stays on a long leash. During that time, those walks, he's allowed to just be a dog. All I want is him to run around and play and sniff and just have a good time. It's really great for their mental health. And when I go on those types of walks, especially while he's on a leash, about every 2 minutes, I'll call him to come. Really work on that command. He comes back to me, he gets a treat, I let him go again. And so it's very, very rewarding. Once he's responding really well, then I'll let him off leash and just go about having a good time. The second type of walk is our attention walk. Now that's basically your walk around the block or when you're out in public and you need him to be well behaved. What I'm looking for is I want him by my side, periodically checking in with a loose leash, never pulling. And so we do have 2 commands there. The first is let's go, just signifying that we're moving, that he needs to follow. And the second is easy if he starts to pull. Now if he does start to pull, I'll tell him easy, give him 2 pops on the leash. If he doesn't immediately stop and put that slack back in the leash, then I'm going to stop. And I'll give him a little bit harder correction, have him come back next to my side. If for some reason there's a distraction that he just really wants to get to in front of you, at that point, he doesn't respond to easy, I'll tell him let's go and I'll walk away from it. And you don't have to just completely change your course. A lot of times I'll just take a few steps back, then turn around, start walking back towards the distraction. Sometimes it takes 10 or 20 back and forth repetitions, but what I'm working on there is that he's focusing on me. So with that, we will go outside and I'll show you that walk. Let's go. So when I start this type of walk, I do like to have him sit. Hey, just get his focus on me a little bit. Good boy. And then I'm just going to tell him, let's go. If he starts to pull, I'll tell him easy. And I expect him to put the slack back in the leash, at least stop. And then when I make a corner, I'll tell him, let's go. And even if he starts to get just a step ahead of me, I can just give him a little tug and he'll slide right back. Let's go. You can see he's very responsive to the leash, which is great. So thanks for letting us train him. Let us know if you have any questions.